You are listening to the Disney Dream Girls, an unofficial Disney theme parks podcast, and this is show number 292 for the 22nd of December 2019. And before we go on, just a quick warning, this show does contain spoilers for Rise of the Resistance. If you wish to keep yourself spoiler free, hop on over and download show 292A, as we've still kept the amazing content but removed the spoilers. Where dreams begin. Hello and welcome to this week's Disney Dream Girls, and I am very blessed to have the wonderful Testa back on the show again. Hello there, Len.
Hi Michelle, thanks for having me.
You are always welcome because you are a font of all Disney knowledge in my books, so...
Thank you for that.
We will be mining into the recesses to find out everything we need to know. But the first thing at the top of my mind, before we crack on to anything, because this wasn't meant to be our discussion, but I want to know about the Riviera new hotel. It just appeared from nowhere, did this place, because I hadn't even had it on my radar. And then there was everything on social media about it opening. So you were there. Tell me.
It's true. So I got there at 7 o'clock in the morning. Actually, I got there a little bit before 7 yesterday, and they weren't quite ready for guests. The official opening was 7 a.m. And the interesting thing about that is it's a relatively tiny resort next to the Caribbean beach, and so I think it's about 300 rooms. But the parking lot and the security area wasn't prepared for the onslaught of curiosity driven people who wanted to come in. So between the people who, the 300 families who had reservations, the resort was sold out, and the travel agents who Disney was giving a tour to, and the local media who were covering it, and the people who were curious, the line to get into the Riviera backed up all the way down Osceola Drive for quite a distance. It was trouble getting in, but once you were in, it's a very nice resort. It's a lot like Animal Kingdom Lodge Kidani Village in terms of scale. Mm-hmm. So it's not as ornate or as soaring as the Jumbo House, but it's really well done. There's a lot of white marble. The decor is, broadly speaking, French. There are the walls are decorated with classical artwork reimagined with Disney characters. So there are, for example, takeoffs of Matisse prints, but with Disney characters in them, which is really clever. I thought it would be kitschy, but it's actually not bad for what it is. Like there's a still life of a bowl of fruit, and you can just make out Remy sort of in the bowl of fruit, sort of managing the placement of all of the fruit in the image. And some of it is really well done. I thought it wouldn't look good. It fits in really well. The overall resort, I think, is stylish. I originally thought it wasn't themed enough, but after staying there now for 24 hours, I've got another day coming up, I think it's just themed enough. The pool area is really nice. They have a bocce court. So there's your Italian part of the French Riviera, I guess. The kids' play areas in the pool complexes are very good. I think the dining is probably above average. I had breakfast and dinner at Topolino last night. So breakfast is a character meal. Dinner is traditional dinner. It's a signature dinner. I thought it was very good. Service was excellent. Food was, again, much better than average. Probably in my top 10. I don't know if I'd put it quite in my top 5 yet. But overall good.
What are the prices like with the food?
Standard. So I think $41 for breakfast for an adult. I think 34 for kids. That's about standard. Actually, it's a decent value for a character meal right now.
Yeah.
Dinner menu was sort of in the high 30s to low 50s range for entrees, for mains. For appetizers, I think we're in the $10 to $20 range. About standard for a Disney signature. Some of the wait staff, though, came over from indirectly from Victoria and Albert's, which I really like. So they're taking this particular part of the restaurant seriously. So dinner service is top notch.
Oh, yumster! It will go on the list for my next trip.
And the rooms are actually pretty good. So I booked a 1-bedroom, and I think to make room for other people, they upgraded a lot of us to 2-bedroom or 3 bedrooms. I got a 2-bedroom, which is what I'm in now. So I spent the night by myself in a 2-bedroom. It was nice, actually. It was nice to have lots of white marble everywhere. The interesting thing is I'm in a 2-bedroom dedicated DVC unit, not a lock-off. And although it's 2 bedrooms, it has 3 showers, which I really right. So yeah, a lot of people can get ready at once. There's a pocket door in the side with 2 queen beds that separates the 2 showers from each other. So 3 groups of people can get ready at once.
Have you tested all the showers to make sure they're all as good as each other?
I did actually. I checked the water pressure on them. They're all fantastic. I checked the beds. The views all seem to be pretty good. Last night I was actually too tired to watch the Epcot fireworks from my room, but you can do that. I'll have on our website touringplans.com maps of which rooms have which views later on. But the one strange thing, a friend of mine was staying at the Tower studio rooms. Have you seen these, Michelle?
Vaguely.
So these are the smallest hotel rooms on Disney property, 220 square feet, and they start at $377 a night and go up above 600.
I remember you saying, is this the place that's got the pull-down beds?
It's a pull-down bed. That's it. The room is small enough that the bed doesn't come out during the day. And so I tried to see it during the day, and unfortunately I didn't. But I think it actually worked out better. So I went there after dinner to see it. And so there were 3 adults in this 220 square foot room. And what I like to tell people, Michelle, is this. In prison, they give you 60 square feet per person, right? So we had vaguely more than that for the 3 of us in this room. And it was almost immediately claustrophobic. There were a number of things wrong with the Tower Studio rooms. They're dimly lit, so it's dismal at night. It's tiny. The nicest part of the room. So let's put it this way. There were 3 of us in the room. One of us stood in the bathroom while we were talking because that was the most comfortable orientation of the 3 of us in that space. And the bathroom is actually the nicest part of the room. It's bright. It's got the white marble that helps. And I actually said, if there was a chair in this room, I would pull it into the bathroom to relax because this is the most cheerful part of this entire thing right here. It was bizarre. Not a good value. I think it's actually the worst hotel room in Walt Disney World.
Oh, wow.
It gave off a vibe of you shouldn't be in here, you need to leave. In a way not like, a haunted house vibe where it's like, oh, time to go. Look at with blood coming down from the walls or whatever. It was physically uncomfortable to be in the room just from the orientation just from the shape of the room and the way that we were all situated in it. It was immensely and immediately uncomfortable. Not a good hotel room at all. Rest of the resort, absolutely fine, right? But this particular, every resort has its flaws. It's this room, and I don't know who's going to book it.
It's obviously somebody who's just come out of prison who wants somewhere to feel at home.
Exactly. If you like tight, confined spaces, and a cave, if you're currently living in a small cave, if you're a hobbit of some type, have I got the room for you?
Oh, sounds perfect for the hobbits out there. I prefer the 2 to 3 bedroomed, luxurious theme park view of Epcot with 57 showers. Perfect.
That would be better. So I don't know what they're going to do with this. My sense is that they're going to have to drop the prices because it's not a good value where it's at. Even with the even if you're booking on points, it's only slightly less expensive in terms of points than like Boardwalk Villas, but Boardwalk Villas rooms sleep 5. So I don't understand the pricing for this particular room.
No, it sounds weird, and it's not like it's got any plus points of it, i.e. it's in the most luxurious place in the world and the room is decked out to 7 bells of beauty. It sounds dim, dismal, small, cramped, confined, and 3 times the price of Pop Century. Right.
I would stay at Pop Century well before I would pick up this room. The explanation that I got from cast members was it's designed to feel like a European hotel room. But a European hotel room where you want to hang yourself? Was that like the second half of what you were going for here? Because, yeah. Anyway, but like I said, the vast majority of the resort is good, right? Parts of it are excellent. Parts of it are very good. Most of it is good. This one particular thing is not. So look, we don't need to focus on that. It's still a good resort. The transportation via Skyliner is simple and direct, easy to walk through. It's completely covered. So even if it's raining in Florida, which I hear happens every once in a while, it's easy to get to the Skyliner.
Perfect. Definitely a place I will want to go and have a little tour around.
I think so. It'll be good.
Well, let's move on to another thing that I know that you've had the pleasure of being a participant of the experience of, shall I say, running of the bulls over at Hollywood Studios. From your description on your show with Jim Hill, talking about having monster-sized flasks, silver insulating blankets, and talk of how you're going to visit the bathroom. Please, can you clarify all of this about Rise of the Resistance? Because I hear it's an amazing ride, but how on earth are you actually going to get on it unless you're there at the park for 3 a.m.?
That's the thing. So let me start by saying Rise of the Resistance is the best ride that Disney's done probably in 30 years. It's even hard to think of a parallel ride that Disney's done that's this good from end to end. Like the only thing that comes close to me in terms of scale, in terms of innovation, in terms of overall experience, is when Forbidden Journey came out for Harry Potter at Universal. Like that was a groundbreaking ride in a huge space. Same thing here, right? These two are equivalent. And I think Rise of the Resistance is again best thing Disney's done in 30 years. I think it'll probably end up being the highest rated ride in any Disney or Universal theme park in the United States, probably within the next year. Fantastic ride. But there are a couple of issues with it. One, and the primary one is this: Disney said the ride was going to open on December 5th, 2019, and it did. But the ride wasn't ready, right? It was like a cake that needed an hour to bake, and we're currently at 35 minutes, right? And as a result of that, the ride doesn't function at its normal capacity. The ride is supposed to handle, I think, somewhere around 1,700 people an hour. At no point since it's opened on December 5th has it actually hit anywhere close to that. I think the best it's ever done is like 50 or 60% of that. So in practice, if you think that there are somewhere between 25 and 40,000 people, 25 to 45,000 people in the studios, of those 25 to 45,000 people, maybe 800, 900 are getting to ride Rise of the Resistance in any given hour. And so as a result of that, Disney isn't running the ride during extra magic hours, and it's not giving out fast passes because it doesn't want to guarantee operating hours or a specific time to a ride when it knows the ride isn't reliable, right? It's so VIP tours don't get special access. There's no extra magic hours. There's no after hours events. There's no fast pass. So the result then is that if you want to ride, your best chance is to get there in the morning after the Imagineers have worked all night to fix whatever's wrong with the ride, and then hope that it's running when the park starts up, get on and ride. And so to accommodate that, Disney's doing this thing called boarding groups. Have you heard of it?
I have.
Okay. So it's like a group fast pass without a specific return time. And the way it works is this. You show up at the park, you tap your magic band, you enter the park, and as soon as you enter the park, you can find a cast member or go into My Disney Experience to join a boarding group. It's prominently displayed in My Disney Experience. You can walk up to any cast member with an iPad and say you want to join a boarding group, and they give you a number, like your boarding group 15, for example. And on the app, it'll tell you, hey, you're boarding group 15. Your return time will be something in the either morning, afternoon, or evening. So the boarding groups are a way of limiting Disney limiting how many people get to ride at any given time. Basically, Disney managing the capacity of the ride, because they don't tell you how many people are in a boarding group, and they don't tell you exactly when it's going to be called. So on one day, if the ride is running great, there might be 100 people per boarding group. The next day, if the ride's not running well, there might be 50 people per boarding group, and nobody knows any different, right? It's just Disney's way of managing it.
So if you get a boarding group, are you guaranteed to actually get onto the attraction?
You're not, actually. So there's a couple of interesting things about boarding groups. Because word of mouth on the ride has been so good, all of the boarding groups are allocated typically within 30 minutes of the park's official opening. So if the park opens at 7 a.m., then all of the boarding groups for the entire day will be gone by 7:30 a.m. And that means that if you get there, let's say you get there at 6:30 a.m. and you're in the very back of the line, you're many thousands of people away from the actual entrance. By the time you get into the park at 7:15, your boarding group might be, boarding group 120, which is typically the last boarding group of the day. And even though you got there at 6:30 in the morning, your boarding group might not board until 9 o'clock at night.
Wow.
Yeah, so you basically have 14 hours to run around the studios. And right now the studios doesn't have 14 hours worth of activities, which presents a problem, right? Do you go back home once you got your boarding group and come back later, or do you go to another park? Like, what do you do for that 14 hours? But once you get the boarding group and you're called, do you want some ride spoilers? I can tell you about the ride.
Go on.
Okay. So you're familiar with the Haunted Mansion's pre-show with the stretching room?
Yes.
Okay. So think of Rise of the Resistance as a ride with 4 stretching rooms beforehand.
Okay.
In each of the stretching rooms, each of the pre-show, 4 pre-show scenes, has its own fantastic wow moment with it. The first one is you're in a cave with BB-8, and you're shown a hologram of Rey, who wants you to join the Resistance, and tells you, now that you've joined the Resistance, you're no longer safe on Batuu. We need to evacuate you to some other place. You'll hop on this transport ship, and we'll take you to another planet. So you walk outside. You're in the outside, like with air above you and sky, and you walk into a transport ship. And the transport ship takes off, and there's video screens all around you that show you flying through space. Here's where something goes wrong. You're captured by the First Order, and what's the term? Tractor beam. You're tractor beamed into a Star Destroyer, and the great part about this scene is the same door that you walked in from the outside now opens to reveal that you're inside a First Order Star Destroyer, and you're in that giant hangar scene that you've seen, I think, with all of the stormtroopers.
Are they actual stormtroopers?
So a lot of them are animatronics that move. Some of them are just plain statues, but
Okay.
but they move, they make noises. It's a very impressive scene, and Disney's actually managed it well enough that one small group at a time gets to see the hangar scene, and most people take selfies because it's very, very impressive. And you've got plenty of time to do it. You're not rushed or you're not crowded. The other interesting thing that you see is this is the first time that you see the cast members working the ride, including their uniforms. And the uniforms look exactly like they do in the movies. And all of the cast members are playing it straight, like they're members of the First Order. They call you rebel spies and scum and tell you that you're going to be interrogated, and you'll give up your secrets about where the rebel base actually is and things like that. They're very much in character, just like in the Haunted Mansion, and it adds a lot to the overall experience.
Well, I'm just thinking, how long is it till some lovely little millennial snowflake comes along and says, I don't like being called scum, and that bit of theming goes?
I think they'll keep it.
I hope so.
I don't think it's, yeah. But they play it straight, and so you're marched sort of down a couple of corridors by the First Order officers, and eventually you're led into a cell where there's a video that plays that shows Kylo Ren about to question you, and Kylo Ren is called away, and then while you're in the cell, the Resistance cuts through one of the walls, and this is another great effect, and knocks the wall down, jumps into your cell and says, we're with the Resistance, we're here to rescue you, follow us. So you run through this hole in the wall, which, again, the amazing thing is you're in the cell, and I kind of knew that something was going to happen with one of the walls, so I started looking at the walls to see where the effect was going to happen, and I couldn't tell where they were going to cut it out. It's very well done with that effect. So you run through this hole in the wall, you jump on, and at this point you're in a group of 16 people. You jump into one of 2 ride vehicles. Each ride vehicle holds 8 people in 2 rows of 4. Mm-hmm. And they tell you, we're going to find an escape pod to get you off of this Star Destroyer and back to Batuu. And this is where the ride part of the experience actually begins. So you go through the Star Destroyer. There's utter chaos. Eventually, you start off by sneaking around the Star Destroyer looking for the escape pod. Eventually, you're discovered. There's a chase scene that goes through some really impressive sets. Have you seen, Michelle, the scene with the AT-ATs, the giant walkers?
Yes, I have.
Every single person Every single person who sees that in person, and I was with a bunch of people when I did it, I've done it 5 times now. Every single person, the reaction is some version of "holy cow," maybe with expletives in it, thrown in there somewhere. It's really amazing. The effects, including the laser blasters, are all really well done. And you see in this scene some resistance fighters helping you out, helping you get out of the Star Destroyer. So you run away from that scene. You eventually encounter Kylo Ren. There is a great effect where Kylo Ren is chasing you, but you shut a door on him, but he uses his lightsaber to start cutting through the metal.
Oh my God.
And it's so the interesting thing about this is I had seen the patent that Disney filed for this back in 2017 about how to do this effect. And even though I knew the effect was coming, I can't tell how it was done. It's that good. It looks very, very realistic. Doesn't look at all fake. It's one of the wow moments in the ride. And like I said, even though I knew it was coming and I knew what Disney was going to do, to see it in person is amazing. One of the best effects Disney's done in a long time. So you eventually escape Kylo Ren. I won't say how. And you end up in the escape pod. And this is interesting because there's actually a drop like Tower of Terror in the escape pod. You're released from the Star Destroyer in the escape pod, and you pilot through a fight scene, and then you end up in the forest, landing in the forest where you originally started. And then your ride vehicle goes outside, and you end the ride actually in the forest of Batuu, outside where you should. And that's the ride.
Wow.
It's fantastic. Really, really well done. Nothing is there are a couple of effects that are groundbreaking, but in terms of like the ride mechanisms themselves, there's nothing like really groundbreaking there, but it's all put together so well. The combination of things makes it the best Disney ride that they've done, like I said, in decades. So
what's the issue that's causing them to only be able to run at 50 to 60% of the number that they're supposed to be? Do we know?
I think it's a combination of things. One is, so this is interesting. When I went on it the first time, a cast member told me to turn my cell phone to airplane mode, because if it wasn't in airplane mode, it would interfere with the sensors in the ride. And I don't know what that meant, but they were telling everyone to do it. So I think that there's some sort of radio interference thing. The other thing is that as they're solving the radio interference problem, this is 4 separate ride systems that have to work together seamlessly. And so as they get it to run longer, you'll see things fail because any complex system has its failure points. Mm-hmm. So I think they're trying to iron that out as well. So that's what I think it is. I think it's a combination of the radio interference thing, and the 4 ride systems. The other thing I heard is, and you can tell this, there are certain points in the scene, in certain scenes, where it doesn't look finished. Like an effect should be somewhere, or a character should be somewhere, and it's not quite there yet. Like part of the ride looks unfinished. It's subtle, but as you go through it multiple times, you'll see it. And I think they haven't quite finished like painting all the sets or installing all of the effects. I think they're not quite done yet, so they need some time for that.
So maybe when they open in Disneyland, they will have ironed out all these bits, and that extra bit of time will necessitate the ride will be more smoothly running over there.
I think so.
Do you think what they're going to do with the opening process in Disneyland is going to be the same with the boarding groups, or do you think they'll utilise MaxPass, or any ideas?
I think they'll use the boarding groups. I don't think they're going to use MaxPass because MaxPass costs money. And if the ride doesn't function at 100% reliability, they don't want to have to give refunds for MaxPass if you miss your time. So the first day that I rode was opening day, and I got boarding group 28, even though I got there at 2:00 in the morning. It was boarding group 28. They started with 10. And eventually I got called in the morning. And as soon as I got off, I got another boarding group. So this was about 8:00 in the morning. And my boarding group was 157. And they never got to boarding group 157. I don't think they passed 120. Mm-hmm. And that was an evening boarding time. So theoretically, I would have waited around all day to not ride. So Disney gave out, and this was their policy for the first couple of weeks the ride was open, 1-day park hopper passes plus a fast pass to ride Rise of the Resistance when you came back again.
That's pretty generous.
It was actually. So anybody who got evacuated from the ride got a fast pass. If you had to go somewhere else, you got a 1 day park hopper, good for 11 years. Like you use it anytime over the next 11 years as compensation. And Disney did that for a couple of weeks, and they were handing out, like, if you complained about the lack of boarding groups, like let's say you got there at 7:30 in the morning, even though the park's official opening was 8, and all the boarding groups were gone. If you complained to guest relations, one option that guest relations had was to give Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party tickets out. So I'm told that over the last couple of weeks, one of the reasons why the Christmas parties have been so crowded is they're basically handing them out like candy to anybody who complains about Rise of the Resistance or the studios. But eventually Disney realized, like, we can't this can't go on forever. We can't do this. So that's why I think that they're limiting the boarding groups. The other thing they did, and they just started this yesterday, was evening boarding groups. So they're holding back some ride capacity now, and giving it out in the late afternoon and early evening, because again, some guests are rightfully complaining that it's my vacation. I shouldn't have to get up at 4:00 in the morning to be at the park at 6. In order to ride this ride. I want to be able to sleep on my vacation. So what Disney's doing now is holding back some of the evening capacity and allocating it to boarding groups that you can get in the late afternoon and evening to ride that evening as well. So that's good.
Sounds fair enough to me. And I do gather, are they giving out candy and water and things in the queue when the ride's not operational?
Right. So this goes back to not wanting to give out more compensation. So originally, the first few days that the ride was open, when the ride broke down, they dumped everybody out of the queue, and they gave everybody fast passes. The problem with that is that as you give these people fast passes and they return to ride, you have a snowball effect of every extra hour that the ride is open. You've got to accommodate now not only the people that you've assigned to boarding groups, but all of the people who previously tried to ride and couldn't, but have fast passes now, right? So they're basically building up a debt of rides over the course of hours and days that they eventually needed to pay for. So to prevent that from happening, what Disney started doing is when the ride broke down, they would just keep people in the building, sometimes for as many as 4 hours, I hear. And to wait until the ride comes back up, rather than dumping them out of the queue and giving everybody fast passes. So as a result, you can't keep people in the line for 4 hours without food and water. So they're bringing in bananas and water and things like that, and basically feeding you while you're in line, so you don't leave and they don't have to give you fast passes or things like that.
They're not handing out those little blue disposable porta potties from the Skyliner then?
I think they're letting you come and go for the bathrooms. But again, it amazes me that Disney built a ride with a line of more than an hour, but doesn't put a bathroom somewhere halfway in it. I don't know what prevents them from doing that. Like, is it maintenance? Is it just they don't think of it? My operating theory, and I firmly believe this, is the people who design the rides don't ride the rides with their family after it opens. Like they fast pass it, or they no. I think it is. I think a lot of like sort of the fundamental problems with Disney parks is that the people who design it don't actually experience it the way that guests do. And I think this is like if you were an Imagineer and you had small children. Let's take Flight of Passage, right? The line could be 5 or 6 hours long. If you were an Imagineer with small children and you had to wait in that 5 or 6 hour line, I guarantee you would go into work Monday morning and say, whip out the blueprints and say, where do we put the bathroom in this line? Because we need one now. And they just don't.
And the same with Slinky Dog. Where's the shade?
Where's the shade? Exactly. The Disney company made $12 billion last year. They can't afford a roof.
I know.
What are we doing here? Yeah.
Although they did manage to stick up stickers that are now absolutely shoddy as anything, and they're all peeling off because guests have knocked them or peeled them or whatever, and it looks the most tattiest queue line ever.
I haven't been on it this month. Hopefully they fix it.
Oh, well, this was back in August when I was there, and I've had friends still sending me messages saying, nah, queue line not looking great, looking a bit tatty.
That's a shame. I'll check it out. I'll head over there. I think I'm going there tomorrow. I'll check it out and let you know.
Len's on the case. He'll get it sorted. Oh, anything else you want to add about this attraction, about when it's coming to Disneyland? Anything at all?
It'll be open January 17th in Disneyland. I expect the first month will be them sorting out operational issues. But it's a great ride. It's a great addition to the overall park. I will say you're going to Disneyland over the holidays, right?
I am. Unfortunately, I leave on the 2nd, so I'm 2nd of January, so I'm not really going to get a chance to see anything, but I will get to go to Galaxy's Edge because I haven't seen that even yet.
Oh, so you'll get to ride Millennium Falcon too.
Yeah, I've been chatting with a friend today, and she just basically said it's Star Wars in a Star Tours vehicle, basically.
With some buttons.
Yeah.
It is. I'll be interested in hearing if you see any extra holiday decorations at Disneyland, because Walt Disney World has quite a few. Have you seen the holiday overlays that they've done for the Tomorrowland Speedway or Living with the Land?
Yes, they look cute.
Super nice. So holiday lights and displays up along Tomorrowland Speedway. Obviously, if you're going to ride it, much better at night than during the day. Similarly, over at Living with the Land, they've taken the quinoa plants and the water lilies and the hydroponic pumpkins and strewn Christmas lights all over everything. Much better at night, again, than during the day. But if any of your listeners get a chance to go over the next couple of weeks, very enjoyable to see both those rides.
I will let you know if I find anything over and above in Disneyland. I'm doing the Christmas tour, so they will be pointing out all the Christmas things that they've added in, so all crossed. I love Christmas additions to the attractions, like It's a Small World, Haunted Mansion. It's like
fantastic. Well, good. So let me know what you see when you're there. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, it gives me a break from all the food I've got to go and eat and the snacks I've got to try.
All the holiday snacks. I forgot about holiday snacks. I should do that while I'm in the parks too.
Yeah. Oh gosh, someone was telling me if you go to Epcot, go to Caramel Couche and they have a gingerbread caramel ice cream cookie sandwich.
What?
It's the most amazing thing ever. My friend Anthony Markham has just come back and he said it was the most divine thing he's ever tasted in his life.
Wow, that's fantastic.
So I'd like to see if you get a chance to try it. Let me know.
I will. I'll look for it when I'm at Epcot.
Perfect. So what about Christmas? Have you any top tips to help our listeners to cope with the mania, the lack of caffeinated guests in the morning, the 6.5 hour wait to get into Hollywood Studios and 14 hours of doing nothing while you wait for a ride?
I think the big thing is to arrive early and to bring some patience with you, especially for the period between Christmas and New Year's. The parks are going to be the busiest that they are all year. If you haven't made a dining reservation, you probably should now, especially as you get closer to the new year. Holiday crowds will ramp up. I believe December 31st will be the busiest day of the year, as it traditionally is. But yeah, just get there as early as you can, especially on New Year's Eve. Bring some patience with you. Just expect long lines everywhere. The good news is that the weather should be fantastic. Mm-hmm. So it's not going to be super hot. It's not going to be super cold. Again, there'll be crowds, but it's a great time of year to go. You see the decorations. Everyone's generally in a good mood. It's still one of the best times of the year to go in terms of fun.
It's just probably not the time of year to try and do 15 rides in a day.
No, that'd be, again, if you get there early and you had a touring plan, you could do it. It'd be but if you get there at 11 o'clock, if you decided to sleep on your vacation, don't expect to do a comprehensive tour of any of the parks.
But you've just mentioned that the ideal solution is go to touring plans and put in what you want to do on the day you want to do it, and you guys will use your number crunching to come up with something really, really easy to achieve that.
It's true. So I've done, even though New Year's Eve is the busiest day of the year, I've actually tested our software with my family on New Year's Eve. We got there one year at 6 a.m. I think the park opened at Magic Kingdom opened at 6:30. We were able to do 35 rides by 5 p.m. So,
do they like being your test guinea pigs?
They do actually. The interesting thing was we had to stop at around 5 o'clock because our cell phones needed to recharge, and it took about an hour. So we ate some dinner at Pecos Bills or whatever. But by the time we left at 6 o'clock, the park was so crowded that it was difficult to move. So that was basically the end of our competitive touring for the day. But again, we got 35 rides in. There's nothing to complain about there.
I'm looking at my Disneyland schedule and I'm thinking, if I get 6 rides a day, then I'm going to be really happy.
Exactly. It'll be fantastic. Yeah, again, it's set expectations.
It is. You've got to have your expectations. You've got to have your patience. You've got to have a variety of clothes to cover every season in one day. Because I know for Disneyland, it starts chilly, it warms up, it ends chilly, particularly towards the end of December. There might be some rain thrown in as well for good measure.
Right. Exactly.
So, all sounds like good fun. Will you be avoiding the parks at Christmas, or are you going to be popping by?
I'll be here. So I've got special plans in the Animal Kingdom between Christmas and New Year's, and I'll be around. So if anyone's in the parks, stop and say hey.
That sounds like fun to me. Well, thank you for stopping by. Why don't you give everyone a big shout out where they can go and help themselves save hours and hours when they're touring the parks by using touring plans. So tell everyone where they can go.
All right. So our site is touringplans.com. You can also read more advice in our book. It's the 2020 edition of The Unofficial Guide to Walt Disney World. It's on a podcast called The Disney Dish with Jim Hill. That's at disneydish.bandcamp.com.
And I actually have in my hands, I'm waiting, you can hear it now. that is The Unofficial Guide. The lovely Lillian has kept me furnished with all the guides. I've got Cruise Line, I've Universal, Orlando.
Oh, that's great.
Buy, because they're brilliant books. They will help you. And obviously, touring plans can make your day bespoke to your requirements.
Oh, thanks very much for that. I appreciate it, Michelle. Let me know what you think of the book when you get back.
I will indeed, and I will let you know about if I survive Disneyland at Christmas.
Good luck with that.
Take care and have a wonderful Christmas, my lovely.
Thanks, Michelle. I'll talk to you later.